Hey, everybody. Welcome to Experience League Live. My name is Daniel Wright. I am a technical marketing engineer here at Adobe. I'm excited to be hosting my first Experience League Live episode. Get the most from your behavioral event data in real-time CDP and AJO. We're going to be talking about computed attributes, and you are welcome to ask questions using the chat pod in the right-hand side of the YouTube page. So go ahead, ask questions at any time, and we'll try to repeat those to our guests. And why don't you start off if you want to just throw in there where you're from, if you've used computed attributes, and why don't we get started? I am excited to be here today with Rachit Gupta
Hello.
and Lori Mishra.
Hey, everybody.
Great, Rachit. You are a product manager for computed attributes. Why don't you go ahead and give our guests your full introduction?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Rachit. I'm a product manager on Adobe's Real-Time CDP and Unified Profile Service. I was one of the core team members involved in building this awesome feature, which would help you deliver better personalization and audience segmentation experiences by aggregating your behavioral events data. And today, I'm really excited to be talking about, how you can use this feature and how this can be helpful. Thank you.
Awesome, Rachit. And I saw that your fun fact is that you're ambidextrous. Now, what's the
Yeah.
most heroic thing you've done with your superpower?
Oh, I can actually play tennis with both of my left and right hands. So that's super cool.
Uh-oh, dangerous. Ratchet the Racket Rocket. Yes, we have him here. Lori, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Lori Mishra. I'm a product marketer for Adobe Real-Time CDP. I've been at Adobe for 6.5 years, which is crazy. Having a great time here, working closely with Rachit and bringing this functionality to market. And we're super excited to deep dive a little bit into that today and help you get more out of the behavioral data that you have in platform.
Great. And I saw your fun fact was that you once had a beer with the mayor of Chicago. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What was going on? How many, just
Yeah.
one beer or multiple? And is it,
I would have had multiple. He only wanted one. But he was campaigning and he just happened to come into a bar and restaurant that we were hanging out, me and my friends. And he ended up sitting at our desk. He bought us some beers. He even got us chips and guac. So, he earned my vote.
that's great. And I understand this was the mayor who is known for saying to never let a serious crisis go to waste.
That's
And so, so let's use that to transition into computed attributes. What was the problem that Adobe was trying to solve with this feature?
Yeah, I think with this functionality, what we were seeing is that customers were using behavioral event data in platform for all sorts of personalization, but maybe getting access to it and doing some of the aggregation and computations they wanted was a little bit harder than it should have been for them. So that's kind of the context we had in mind when we brought this to market. And I have a couple of slides I can show you all some of the things we heard from our customers when we were doing research in terms of what was difficult for them and what problem they wanted solved. So I think we all know this if you've, especially if you've done anything with Adobe, you've heard a lot about personalization, but basic personalization is not enough. And getting the most out of the behavioral data, the real time signals that you get from your customers, really is the difference maker when it comes to personalization. So, say you have somebody who visited your site. Maybe you look at the last time that they visited your site, and based on what they were looking at before, you can try to figure out what experience to serve them. But what if you could up level that impact and maybe also look at the last product that they looked at in your app in a separate device? What if you could incorporate some signals from a data partner about that same visitor and learn a little bit more about them and use that to personalize? And what if you could also look at the value of the purchases that they've made in the last month and use that information to pick the right products to showcase to this person when they land on your website? Of course, we all want to do this, right? All of the marketers, our customers that we talk to, definitely want to do all of these things quicker and more simply. But what they might be doing today to get at this information is probably a little bit more challenging than they would like. So, say you're a marketer or a data engineer, or someone who's responsible for a platform, and you want to summarize and use timely customer behaviors to personalize experiences. What you might be doing today is trying to get access to those behavioral insights and computations from other systems. And what that naturally introduces is some complications and latencies in how you get that information that lives somewhere else, create a computation, and then use it in marketing and advertising. Second, you want to generate actionable insights from customer behaviors quickly. But maybe to do that today, because of where the data sets live and the complicated workflows, you may have to call upon a data scientist, somebody who can write a SQL query to create those insights for you and then bring that back to you into a marketing system, of course, introducing latency. Another thing that's important with behavioral data and really the use of any customer data is being aware of the usage policies that you have for your organization. So just keeping track of the opt-ins and opt-outs that a customer has to say, yes, you can reach out to me, and yes, these are the channels that I'm open to being contacted, but maybe not these other channels. It's important to respect that and kind of adhere to those preferences and also your larger organizational policies. But today, what might be happening is if your behavioral data is fragmented and in a couple of different systems, you have a lot of people touching that information to create aggregates and insights. You can't totally be sure about if you are able to respect the preferences of your consumers. And then lastly, you want, again, that behavioral data available so that you can use it in segmentation. And maybe you want to send some of those values down to other downstream systems. But it can be difficult today because you might have to be coming up with complicated segmentation rules to get at a more nuanced picture of your audiences. So to, say, for example, get at the four bubbles that you see around our guy in the purple shirt, you're maybe coming up with a few different segmentation rules to arrive at an audience list that can meet a more complex criteria.
Hmm. I know some customers have been using the query service feature in platform to aggregate values and output new data sets and accomplish that type of functionality. What does computed attributes bring to the picture?
Yeah, great question. I think our goal is always to have workflows and options available for a lot of different personas. So, like you mentioned, Daniel, we have query service and data distiller in Experience Platform that allows a more technical persona to write SQL queries and aggregate their own um, uh, behavioral insights and attach it to different data sets and then use those data sets for activation. What we wanted to do with computed attributes is make that same workflow and end goal available at a profile level and in a workflow that a non-technical person could execute.
Hmm.
So really, we're just trying to get at as many use cases and as many personas as possible.
Hmm.
So it was, with that in mind, that context in mind, we built computed attributes. And with computed attributes, what we're allowing real-time CDP and Journey Optimizer customers to do is to summarize profile behavior into computed profile attributes so that they can enhance segmentation, personalization, and activation use cases. What's really cool about this is these aggregates that you're creating are stored at a person level. So, say you want to know how much I spent in the last month on everlane.com, which I kind of have a problem spending too much money there. You can calculate that exact value and attach that dollar value to my profile and use that to personalize. So, really, there's three key things here that we want to highlight. The first is, like we've been saying, this allows you to enhance your one to one and batch personalization use cases. So, you can use those actual aggregates, those actual values to determine what kind of experience somebody's going to get or what kind of experience a whole audience might get. The second is this simplifies how you might be doing segmentation today. Segmentation can be binary today, right? Somebody meets your criteria or doesn't. What this allows you to do is incorporate the actual value into your segment creation, which means you have fewer segment logic that you have to come up with. And the third, like with anything Adobe Experience Platform, all of this functionality is delivered with trust. So, say you have data sets that you have applied labels to and policies to say, this can't be used for personalization. Computed attributes will respect that policy that you've set so that you can be sure that the right data sets are being used in the right channels.
Hmm. Now, this for a long time that I've been at Adobe, I started as a target consultant, and some of those use cases you mentioned in the last slide, being able to show things like or capture things and store against a profile, like the last product viewed, we would use a feature called profile scripts to accomplish that. But it was really contained to usually just a web channel. What did they do on the website? But it seems like this is similar functionality in platform, and since it's at that platform level, you're not restricted to just events that are coming from the website. You can incorporate all types, all sources of event data, and also take advantage of these other platform capabilities like the data governance and consent preferences, which really takes that ability to a new level and depth of power. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's interesting to hear that context from you, Danielle, but what we were doing before. And to your point, one of the main value props of Experience Platform is being able to bring together information across channels, across data sets. So not
Mhm.
just web, um, but really anything that you think is relevant to your business. Leads me in
Cool.
nicely, actually, to a very quick visual I have. So today you have the real-time customer profile. So if you're a customer of real-time CDP or Journey Optimizer, you may know that the profile is comprised of profile attributes, things like maybe location, maybe gender, maybe buying preferences. And then you can also incorporate event data into those profiles. What we're doing here is allowing you to aggregate that event data in the form of computed attributes and store those as another attribute in the profile for that person. And once you have that computed attribute, you can use it for segmentation, or you can actually also use it in audience composition, which was something we brought to market 3 or 4 months ago. You can send that specific attribute downstream to real time CDP destinations. So, say you calculated the number of flights somebody has taken, and you know that because of the qualification criteria, they're now a gold member. You can pass on that value of gold member to a web personalization use case. So when somebody logs in or lands on your website, you can say, "Hey, thanks for being a gold member." And the third is similarly, you can use that attribute for in journey optimizer as well. So Rachit will demo all of these use cases so that you can kind of see how this really comes to life across the platform. I have a quick example here to sort of reiterate how this works today and why a marketer or why a business might find it useful. So we have a scenario here. We have our marketer here, Lisa. She is a marketer for a national grocery brand, and she needs to increase sales for a new vegan product line. Thanksgiving is coming up, so she's got to get the sales up for tofurkey and reach her vegan customers. So
Yes.
what
The
Lisa might
only time of year that tofurkeys sell.
Yeah, 100%. Which I have to be honest, I made that comment about tofurkey, but I've never had it myself. So I don't know what it tastes
Like
like.
a Well, what's funny is what they look like because it's like tofu, but then it's like pressed into a mold, so it looks like, this
Looks
little turkey.
funny. Yeah,
So
yeah, it's hilarious. Um, so Lisa here has to get the sales up of tofurkey because Thanksgiving is coming up. So what she might do is she might create a computed attribute and get a count of the vegan products all of her customers have purchased in a well defined time window. So, what this will mean is that as somebody purchases vegan products, that count increases and that count is attached to a person's profile. And because it's attached to that person's profile, she then chooses to use that attribute in segmentation logic. And here she creates an audience of website visitors who have purchased more than 5 vegan products in the last 30 days. Because in her business, pretty good indicator if you bought 5 of any one category in the last 30 days, it means that you're interested. You're interested in that category. And once she has that audience created, she can then send it downstream for web personalization. And maybe she's using Adobe Target to deliver that personalization or really any other personalization engine that she wants so that she can say, okay, once an audience qualifies for this criteria I have set, show them visuals and highlight the products from our latest vegan product line so that I can drive more sales.
cool.
Um, pretty simple, yeah, pretty simple example here. Daniel, are you seeing any questions or comments?
I do not see any questions or comments yet, but folks watching live, feel free to use the chat pod if you have any questions for Lori or Ratchet. Um, I do have a vegan joke for you, Lori. Do you know what do you know what vegan zombies eat?
No, what do they?
Grains. Grains. There you go. And
That's-
also, since it's sort of it's a little past Halloween, uh, did you know that most ghosts are vegan?
I did not know
That
that.
that's right. They're supernatural.
Oh, wow.
Doug, where are you with the sound effects? You told me you're gonna be ready. There we go. All right. Okay. So we do have a question from C. Jara. How does CDP AJO compare to Adobe Audience Manager?
Yeah, great question. So with real-time CDP, the focus is making sure that you have a strong first-party data foundation. Audience Manager is great for use cases where you're still utilizing third-party data signals and you're activating to cookie-based destinations. But of course, with Google soon to phase out third party cookies starting in January, we think it's important that our customers start shifting to a first party data centric strategy. And real time CDP allows you to easily bring in all of your first party data sources and then also bring in third party signals from data partners that you might be working with as well. So you can create unified audiences regardless of the type of data, and then activate them out. And Journey Optimizer uses a similar framework as well, so that you can centralize your first party audiences and reach out to them across engagement channels.
Oh, great. Why don't we switch over to Ratchet, who has a demo for us so we can see what computed attributes looks like and what it can do. Ratchet, you ready for that?
Yeah, awesome. I am ready. Just let me know if you are able to see my screen.
Yep, we see it.
Yep.
Awesome, awesome. So, Laurie, your vegan use case is already making me hungry. Uh, Anyway, so yeah, I think it was helpful to learn about how computed attributes are useful, why we thought about having this feature as part of the platform capability. But will be good to now talk about how this actually works. And one of the key things that Laurie talked about was the aggregation of events and being able to write those aggregates directly to your profile. And we have some out of the box functions, more simpler like sum or count, but also complex functions like min, max, or most recent. So just to give an example of how you could use these functions, and we'll go into the user interface in a bit. um, these are the functions available on the UI, so you don't have to write any kind of SQL or even like put any complex rule. You are able to now create these rules via user interface, and it's super easy for you to now, for example, target your profiles based on the last product somebody viewed, right? So just to give an example on the most recent function, you could build a rule which kind of says that, hey, give me all for all the profiles, give me the last product they purchased in, for example, a shoe category, right? And what it would do is it would aggregate the events for all the profiles for each profile, and look at the latest shoe they bought, and write that value to the profile. And now you are able to use that value either in your segmentation or in your personalization experiences. So let's actually kind of go into the UI and see how this would work. So right now I am in the experience platform um, page, and under the profiles tab you will see a new tab called computed attributes, and that's where this feature resides. This is the inventory screen where you have all the attributes that we have created, and you have some of the descriptors so that what kind of attribute was created, when was it last evaluated, whether the last evaluation was successful, how frequently these calculations are updated, and we have some of the life cycle statuses, because each computed attribute could be in either a published state, which means that it's available on your union schema to be used, or it could be a draft, which is like, this is a definition which I'm kind of working on. I still need to work on it and get it approved before I publish it. Or it could be, if you have already published a computed attribute, you could also deactivate it, which means that you don't want to use it anymore. And the deactivated computed attributes don't contribute towards your entitlements. And then you can know kind of like when you created and when you modified the computed attribute. So let's actually look at an example of how you can go and create computed attribute by UI. So you would essentially go hit on create computed attribute button. And once you go here, we already have one of the attributes created, so we can actually have a look. So here, we are trying to look off for each profile, what was the last time they transacted, right? So here it's about, give me the last time somebody bought an Apple product, right? And essentially this display name and the field name are the fields on the union schema, which will be auto created for you so that you can use them either in your segmentation or in the personalization workflows. The second piece here is the definition piece, right? Here you will specify some of the filters on the events that you want to do. For example, here you want to aggregate on all the events where the product was of type Apple, and there was a purchase event, right? So we have like the purchase event exists, and the product is of type Apple. And lastly, what you would have is something which is called the functions. So these are the 5 functions which we spoke about. So you have sum, count, min, max, and most recent. In this specific use case, because you want to look at the last time somebody transacted, you can look at the most recent function, which gives you the latest value. But you have to give me the latest value of what, right? So you have to basically specify the timestamp here, and you can take whatever timestamp you want. Here we have taken the timestamp of the experience event. And once you have specified that, the the last piece is about specifying the look back, right? So how much in the past do you want to aggregate? And these lookbacks are super flexible in terms of, you can specify in terms of hours, days, weeks, or months. And each of them, the durations have their limits, but they provide you the flexibility to do more like, more frequent refreshes versus like monthly refreshes, which are like you want to aggregate, for example, for 6 months, and you want to refresh it on a slower frequency as compared to, for example, if you're looking back in last 24 hours and you want to refresh it on a more faster pace. So once you have actually created this computed attribute, you can either save it as a draft or you could publish it. Now, once you publish it, what happens is it creates a new field on the union schema. And basically, when you go on the union schema, if you see the individual profile, this is where under the system computed attributes, you will see all these attributes which are created for you. So that's just a quick intro to how you can, go and create computed attributes on the UI. Will be now interesting to actually look at how these attributes can be successfully used to unlock use cases for your segmentation or personalization. So let me switch back to the deck just to give you some glimpse into how you can simplify your segmentation workflow with the behavioral data. So how you would previously do before this feature was, if you have to target profiles or audiences based on their purchase frequency or how much amount they purchased, you would have gone and created multiple segments which are kind of segmented by the number of times they did, or how much of the total value they spent. So you would end up creating multiple segments and activate each of these audiences to your destination or to your Adobe Journey Optimizer journeys. Now, with this feature, what essentially it translates to is you can unlock the same use case with far lesser segments in a way that now you're able to create a one segment which says, give me all the profiles who have done at least one purchase in the last 30 days. And you can create essentially computed attributes which can store the values of how much they purchase or how many times they purchase. And then as a single audience, you can activate not only the profiles, but also the values linked to their purchases. And this simplifies your segmentation a lot. And just to give you a quick tour into how this looks like, when you actually go into your segment builder, this is the example of a rule builder. And here you can search for computed attributes. And under the system computed attributes, you see all the attributes that have been created. And you can just drag and drop the fields here and specify the rules how you want to target those audiences. So, for example, here we have, done the pulled in the attribute of some of the data used in the last 6 months, or the last transaction value that they transacted on. And now you can segment based on these more granular event based data as well. All right, now let's get to the more cooler part of it, which is the personalization. We have spoken about creation of a computed attribute, using it in a segment. The third thing is about now being able to use this to personalize better, either via RTCDP destinations, via Target, or via Adobe Journey Optimizer. So let's look at how things were, looking like previously. So you have the events, experience events data in profile with a certain amount of TTL, of course, and you would run a segmentation which would be limited to the amount of data you have with the TTL. And the ability to access the behavioral data, which is the events, directly in your personalization is or might be limited to the segments that you're building. So in a way, you might not be able to directly pull in the event data at the time of personalization. And that's where the computed attribute feature fits in. With this feature, now, even if you have a TTL applied, you can aggregate for a longer duration. And the reason is because computed attributes are incrementally calculated. So once they see a profile entering, an event entering a profile store, the counter keeps on ticking, which means that even if you go and delete those events, and if they are already qualifying for the rule you have specified, it will still keep on counting and like aggregating your data. And what that translates to is that you are able to now not only segment based on a longer look back of data, which means you're not only able to target based on, like a larger event size, but also you are able to now use your event data directly in your personalization. And as you could have guessed, this is because with this feature, your events are essentially transformed into an aggregated profile attribute. And since you can use these profile attributes in your personalization, what that means is that you are now essentially using that event data directly in your personalization. All right, so let's, yeah,
And
Daniel, go
Racha,
ahead.
like an example of using it directly in the personalization is that you can, if to use Lori's example, if they looked at the tofurkey on the grocery store website and say it was the last product that they viewed before they left the site, and that was your computed attribute, the last product viewed, um, you could use that in the messaging. So with AJO, you could send them an email that had a picture of the beautiful pressed tofu into the turkey shape. You could show that on the website through Target when they came back to the site next time. Like that's what you mean by using it directly, right? Like you can
That's,
be very specific with those attributes and use them in the messaging.
that is 100% correct, Daniel. You are spot on. You explained it way better. Yeah, exactly. So you are now able to go more granular into what they exactly purchased, to the extent that you could, the email you send them out or a push notification you send them out, you could actually send that value personalized for every profile. That's correct.
Mm. Cool. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, that was a great question. Thanks for asking. And now actually let's see how, what does that actually mean in the user interface. So I have a sample journey pulled up for you here. And as a usual journey flow, you have a read audience, you would basically qualify some audiences using a segmentation. You have like some condition which will basically decide to split a journey, and eventually you want to send out an email, right? Now with this computed attributes, you can use them in multiple places here. So just to give an example, if you are splitting a journey, and with this turkey example, for example, you could have a segment saying, oh, give me all the people who did a purchase in the last 30 days. But in your condition, you want to now split based on the computed attribute, which was the last product they purchased. Now you could simply go into your add expression, and under the field groups, you have all these computed attributes readily available and refreshed at the latest time for you. So now you could actually look at, like, for example, the last transaction, last city they shipped, some of the usage, and and whatnot. Now, in this example of, for example, you can pull the last product they purchased and select in your journey condition, and you could now split your journey based on if they purchased product of category vegan versus a product of category meat. You can now split your journeys. It doesn't end there. Even in your personalization email experience, when you go and you edit your content, you are now able to put that exact product value from the computed attribute directly in your personalization experience. So that's where the real value comes, that you are now narrowing down in each part of the journey based on the events, which would have been very complex, and with other ways to write a SQL, or to uh, combine data sets or take about the user preferences. So it does all the heavy lifting at the back end. So all that portion is abstracted for you now. All right. So let me actually go to one use case. Um, this is just one example of how a bank, who was one of the beta customers for us, they use computed attribute to fulfill their personalization use case. So what they were essentially interested in is how much did each profile spend on travel in the last 6 months? And they created a computed attribute, which is essentially the sum of purchases with the purchase type as travel. And they used the computed attribute in multiple ways. One was to essentially segment their profiles based on the purchases, and by doing that, they were able to personalize on the web to display a travel-oriented credit card offer because a certain profile had spent more than X amount, and they feel that they might be a good candidate to offer a travel credit card. But also, because computer attribute can be used directly into their personalization experience, which means that they were also able to personalize their emails by things like, hey, thanks for being a very valuable member, and your total purchases was X dollars in the last 30 days, which could potentially wow their end users with, like, hey, okay, I did X amount of purchase, maybe I am Y dollars from my target, and I could like become a more premium member. So you could unlock those kind of use cases. They were able to unlock those kind of use cases by using this feature. All right, so Daniel, I will take a pause to see if there are questions coming in the chat.
There were some questions about using the segments in Target or analytics. Um, you, I think you mentioned how if you build an audience in CDP, you can share that using the computed attributes. You can share that to Adobe Target. You can also share the attribute value itself to Adobe Target. also, right?
That's correct. Yes. So, like any profile attribute, you could also project these attributes on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
These are calculated in profile in platform, but they can be used in the edge, which means that even Adobe Target can either use a segment which is using a computer attribute, or they could directly use a computer attribute to personalize on the web.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And by sharing that attribute, that's how you could potentially show the image of the tofurkey or whatever the product was that that individual customer was you determined was interested in. Um, what about analytics? I believe we now have the Experience Cloud audience or the Experience Cloud destination in real-time CDP. Have you heard of anyone using customer attributes or an audience based on customer attributes with that destination?
Yeah, so customers bring analytics data into CDP all the time, right? And with this computed attribute, even this can aggregate the data, which is like your analytics data, and send that to the destination. And if I'm not wrong, if the analytics destination can accept an attribute, so they should be able to use the computed attribute there as well.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we need to look at what the specification of that destination is. And most of the CDP destinations can accept profile attributes. So
Hmm.
yeah, they could use computed attribute as well, potentially.
Mm. Yeah, and I feel like computed attributes released around the same time that that new Experience Cloud destination was released. So there might be a lot of new things to try out using those two features together. Um, can you tell us about the beta process for this? What types of things did you learn from customers during the beta period? What things they wanted to
Oh,
use
yeah.
this feature to do that
Sure.
that perhaps you
Sure.
haven't covered already?
Yep, sounds good. So we had a very great and successful beta with about 10 large enterprise customers, and they were across retailers, banks, media and entertainment companies, and we have seen like the value across different themes. So just to name a few, they were able to, the customers were able to use their events directly in the personalization, as we mentioned. There was a use case around being able to retarget the anonymous profiles, because your profile data could have, your events could have like partner ID, or they could have like, other identifiers like email addresses, right? Which are not readily available as a profile attribute on the profile. So they were able to now look at those event attributes and pull that into a profile attribute and retarget them either through CDP destinations or journeys. So that was super cool. The third thing was we observed like a large retailer being able to reduce hundreds of segments into just handful of computed attributes. So they essentially wanted to, today they basically built like these segments based on, oh, what was a last product somebody purchased, or like RFM metrics, right? How frequently they purchased, how recently they purchased, right? Or the total value they purchased. And now they were able to build these three or four computed attributes, which essentially reduce their huge workload of managing and creating these large volumes of segments. And finally, we also observed a huge value in terms of the time to value, which one of the customers, they were super happy with how this reduces the stress of managing your data sets or transforming them, applying the dual governance labels, and a lot of the heavy lifting that goes into bringing this behavioral data into profile, and making sure this behavioral data is in the right form to be able to use in your personalization. So now, because this entire thing is embedded in a workflow, they don't have to now think about like pull hundreds of different things they would have to do otherwise. So yeah, that was the feedback from the beta.
Mm. Racha, we do have a question from Arun. This sounds especially relevant, for something like, holiday shoppers. He's asking, is it possible to create a custom date range in the computed attribute? For example, a time frame of August to September instead of having it be a rolling last 2 months. Yeah, I could see it being useful for, the holiday shopping season, you know, compute an attribute for people spending from last November, December. Um,
Hmm.
is that something that's possible now or?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And we have heard similar use cases where customers want to have like custom ranges. This is part of the potential future enhancements we plan to do. So in the current iteration, what they can do is they have like a rolling window and there's a look back. They can specify up to 2 months, 3 months, or like 6 months. But yeah, the specific date ranges is something which is on our mind, and we plan to bring this as part of the future enhancements. But
Hmm.
thanks for bringing that use case. Yeah.
Yeah. And any other things that you have on the roadmap for the feature?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we are always striving to improve our capability, and by no means this is the final thing. We are working on improving this further, and there are like three different dimensions in which we are working on improving this. The first one being that the amount of like the functions we have. So we do have like five powerful functions, but we plan to expand the list by doing things like being able to concat, or like make a list of products you purchase instead of just like giving the last product, right? The other thing is like in terms of the look backs, how much of aggregation you could do. So things like custom date ranges, but also things like can you do like a lifetime value or can you do like longer look back windows, right? So getting there is the second dimension. The third one is in terms of the data complexity. So being able to handle your complex data, which could be either in forms of arrays, it could be in forms of your relational entities and stuff like that, doing like a lookup, and multi-entity things. So those are the things which we have heard from customers so far, and we are working on bringing in the future roadmaps.
Hmm. Yeah, and I just noticed today in the Experience Platform community section of Experience League, somebody asked about had an idea to extend the computed attributes feature so that it supported the lookup tables or those schema
Hmm.
relationships. So using the community to post those types of feature requests is a great thing because those get funneled up to folks like Raja and Lori, who can then help prioritize those items for the product roadmap. Um, Lori, what are um, what are customers missing out on by not using this feature?
Yeah, we've seen a really quick adoption of this. I think we released it about 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, and the trend line of adoption is fast, which is great because I think that indicates that it's really solving a real problem. Some of the things I think that I shared before um, are pretty cumbersome to do. So you might be missing out, without something like computed attributes, you might be missing out on timely event data, right? By the time you have somebody in a separate system, create aggregates for you, send that back to you so you can figure out what audiences to attach that to and send it for personalization. Maybe that data is stale. But with this, it's all in kind of one interface. The event data is coming in, and as it's coming in, the counter is ticking like Rushit shared. So I think that's from a marketer perspective, from a brand perspective, that's probably the biggest value.
Hmm.
Um, And there's also some other functionalities here. Like I think the fact that you can have those look back windows means you can purge some of the less useful event data from the system and kind of reduce the bloat in the system. And that helps you with things like your license usage management, which we've found most customers care about. So how do you kind of just keep the stuff that you need, but not hang on to anything and everything because all data is not useful. So computed attributes helps you accomplish that.
Hmm. Great. So let's wrap up. This recording of today's session will live on YouTube. We'll also post it to Experience League as well, and we'll create a community post for this session. So if anybody has any additional questions that came up, out of this session, you can post those there and we will respond. There's a lot of documentation for computed attributes on Experience League. If you just use the search feature and search for computed attributes, you'll find that pretty quickly. And with that, we like to end with an unrelated cool. And for this month's Experience League live session, I believe Lori has an Thanksgiving cool tip for us. Lori?
I do. Yeah. So if you're hosting a Thanksgiving dinner and you're cooking a turkey, something I read on the internet that I've started to do when I host dinner is I separate the skin from the bird and I crisp up the skins in a afterwards between two cookie sheets so you get like maximum crispiness. That way the bird can cook at the temperature it needs to without burning your skin. So if you care about crispy skin, you know, there's your tip.
Sounds delicious, Lori. When should we come over?
I'll see you Thursday.
All right. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. And again, go find the community discussion and post any additional questions you have. Thank you. And thanks, Racha and Lori.
Thank
Thanks, Daniel.
you.
Bye.